First of all, this is about inspiring entrepreneurs. I've got to tell you, I find nothing more inspiring than standing in a room full of people who are poised either at the beginning or on the edge of their entrepreneurial journey. Because being an entrepreneur tells me, or considering being an entrepreneur tells me, that there's energy, there's creativity, and there's a real desire to grab hold of life and get on and do stuff. I think 7 must have been a vintage year. Ollie was out selling his honey when he was 7 years old in Zambia. My first business was selling flowers when I was 7 years old. And it was, I call it a drive. It was kind of the carport bit. And I picked some flowers from the garden. Actually, they weren't really very good flowers. They were tree flowers that died in about half an hour. But anyway, I put them in the vase and I put them on our drive, and I'd noticed that actually people were kind of spotting it too late. They'd already driven past the drive. So I thought, oh, I'll put them in the neighbour's drive because they'll see them then. So I put them over in the neighbour's drive. Well, the neighbour was furious. So she marched me and my flowers back to my mother, who looked at me with that, "Did you do that, Deborah?" I said, "Sorry, Mum, yes, I did." "Well, you're a very naughty girl." And the neighbour left, and that look of pride on my mother's face when she'd realised that I'd thought, you know what, location at the age of 7 years old. But my first serious business, do you know, I'm going to draw a distinction between being in business and being an entrepreneur. Because being an entrepreneur, and partly through programs like Dragon's Den and The Apprentice, is bandied around an awful lot at the moment. But actually, you can be in business and not be an entrepreneur. And it's important to make the distinction, because everybody talks about the attributes that an entrepreneur has to have. But actually, you can be very, very successful in business, running a business very, very well, but missing some of those things that everybody talks about when they're being entrepreneurs. And it worries me that some people get put off business because they think, oh, I'm not really in a position to take risk, or that doesn't really sound like me, when actually there's an awful lot of incredibly successful people who, oddly, I don't really describe as entrepreneurs. They run very, very good businesses. The bit that an entrepreneur does, and I couldn't have summed it up better, it's the energy, it's the I'm going to grab hold, it's spotting the opportunity, it's the ability to take risk, it's the absolute, it's the passion, it's the person who listens to their advisor and then thinks, thank you very much, I'm going to decide what I'm going to do now, as opposed to listening to the advisor and saying, please tell me what to do. And that's the difference between the business person and the entrepreneur. Not that one is right or wrong, but they are a little bit different. And when Ollie's quite right, we were having a discussion before about learning to be an entrepreneur. I actually agree that, I went to business school. Actually, I didn't attend a lot of it, to be fair. I had a really good time in Brighton for about a year, and I just about scraped through. But I have to say, I learned skills there that now I'll think to myself, how did I know that? And of course I know that because I learnt it. So there are definitely business skills. It's very important. It's the reason you'll come to the British Library. It's very, very important to learn those skills. But there are also attributes that I think, A, come through personality, but they also come through where you are in your life. There are times when you can't afford to take massive risk. There are times when you can afford to take massive risk. And those are all the things you need to take into account. I was very, I never stood at the beginning of my journey thinking, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I stood at the beginning of my journey thinking, I actually can't work for anybody. So my only real choice was to actually set out in business on my own. And then I learnt through my business experience that actually I enjoyed the moments of, yes, we did it. And I actually, oddly, enjoyed the really difficult moments where you think, oh, what have I done? Because what entrepreneurs do is that they don't see barriers, they do see around them. It's amazing the amount of entrepreneurs that I know that are dyslexic, and I believe that's because they've always had to think around things. They've had to find a different way to do things, and that is something an entrepreneur does. One of the things I was asked to talk about today is some of the barriers that I've come across. Do you know, I don't think I have. And I obviously have, But it's kind of part of life. It's what you do as an entrepreneur. You get a problem, you look at it, and you talk to people, and you walk around a bit, and you think, that's how we can solve that. And then you move on. You don't stand there for hours thinking, wasn't that difficult, and didn't we do well? You just get on with it. And for me, that is a really, really important part of when you're running a business, because, we all know it can get really, really tough. I also want to talk about, my career, as my business love of my life, really. The last time I worked in a business was West Star Holidays. And West Star Holidays, by the time I sold it, we were providing about 200,000 holidays a year. And I loved that business. I absolutely lived, ate and breathed it. And actually, I almost would have felt disloyal to go on and run another business. I really loved it. I was asked to talk about IP today, and I thought, well, actually, in West Star, in the traditional terms, you wouldn't necessarily have considered the IP of that business. But of course, there's IP in everything you do. Everybody thinks of IP as, you've seen me on Dragon's Den. I have to look at the patents. I can't help myself. It's patents, trademarks, all of those things. But actually, IP is much more than that. And protection of that IP is much more than that. There is the legal protection. Is this important to protect it? Is it protectable? Does it actually matter? That's the legal side of it. But there is also the brand protection, the thing that Cobra Beer has done so brilliantly. They've made this wonderful thing, and I would give my hand, I just know they would protect that to the ends of the earth. What does Cobra Beer mean? Nobody is going to take that away from them. So that whole thing, it's not just about legal protection. What really matters to this business? Why do the customers really like me? And I'm not going to move away from that, because I know that's what my customers want. And as businesses get bigger, we can sometimes lose that. We can sometimes forget what it is that our customers want. And we kind of think, should we try a new? Well, we've done that. Let's try something else. And before you know it, you're doing something completely different. All your customers are looking at you and kind of, weren't you the people who promised me that? Oh, and you're over here somewhere. So that is the whole protection of what you are and who you are is really, really, for me, very, very important. But I'm going to say something else about business. And I think it's the most important thing that I have learned. Before you start your business or in your early days, think about why you're doing it. Everybody in this room will have a different reason. And if it is just to make money, you're a business person. If it's because of something else, if it's because of a passion, if it's because you've seen something that you really, really want to do and you've got a burning desire to do it, that tips you into being an entrepreneur. Because being in business is I'm going to put this a different way. Business is about creating the thing for you that you want out of your life. And it's that old adage of, am I working to live or am I living to work? And business is your tool to create that life. The trouble is, as we get into business, as business gets bigger and as it grows, we can forget that. We can forget the reason we started in the first place. And we can get completely overcome with all of the issues and the problems that we have. So before you start, or at the very early stages of your journey, think to yourselves, why am I doing this? What is my motivation? And write yourself a letter. Because in those tough and hard times, when we've all had them, we've all think, I cannot believe I've got myself into it. That is the letter you need to get out, and you need to remember. And also you need to remember in the times when your customers are looking at you in a very confused way, saying, I don't recognize you anymore. You're not what you told me you were. You need to get that letter out again, and you need to see the promises you've made to yourself, and you need to see the promises you've made to your customers. I've also been asked to talk about role models, and I'm a bit odd about role models. Role models are really, really important. I could name you a lot of people that I meet every day, and some of them are people I'm invested in, some of the people I've worked alongside with. You wouldn't know any of them. Because when I walk through life, what I've realized is nobody has it all. And when we look at role models, we tend to think, that's it, that's the person I want to be. Trust me, however many times Evan says I'm the expert in everything, I'm not. Nobody has it all. But what I do realise is that people in life that I meet do something extraordinary, and I think, that was brilliant. That was fantastic. And I pick up that information, I put it in my toolbox, and when I need it, I'll remember, I'll go back to them, and I think, that was brilliant. So my role models don't have names. They have moments and experiences, and there are people who I could just roll off and you think, who's she talking about? And that's my tip to you. Don't look for that in one person that you can say, that's who I want to be. Look across the range and think, that's the moment, that's the person I want. I remember that. I remember how they dealt with that. So that's my biggest, I think my time's probably up. Yes, I heard a little cough over here. We actually she was going to do this, and I said, that looks like the Cheshire Cat. So if we can have some kind of cough. So my tip to you, remember, I'm just going to leave you on that note, remember that why you are in business and this passion that you feel now to do it, because business can give you some hard knocks, and it's that memory of that, it's what's firing you up, that's what will get you through it. And I've talked too much, thank you very much.